The market was loud and crowded, but in the middle of it all sat a small figure in the dirt. She was an alien girl, her skin pale under layers of mud, her clothes torn and unwashed, her hair tangled with dust. Traders passed by her without care, and others spat near her feet. They called her names, dirty, worthless, useless, as if her very existence was something to laugh at. She did not move much, only curled herself smaller, hiding her face in her arms. Her stomach growled with hunger, but no one offered her food. Children from the stalls pointed and mocked, throwing small stones. The girl flinched but stayed silent, as if she was used to the cruelty. Among the crowd walked a human traveler, a stranger dressed in simple clothes, but carrying himself with calm strength. He noticed how the people avoided the girl like she was a sickness. Yet when he looked closer, he saw her eyes beneath the dirt, two bright eyes that were tired but not lifeless. For a moment he stopped, something inside him pulling him toward her. The people noticed him watching, and one merchant laughed. "Don't waste your time, human, that one is trash." The merchant said, "She is not even fit to clean the ground." "Leave her," another voice added. But the human did not listen. Instead, he walked closer, each step heavy under the judging eyes of the crowd. The girl slowly raised her head, confused. She had never seen kindness directed at her, only harsh words and kicks. Her lips were dry, her hands trembling as she tried to hide her face again. The human knelt down and held out a flask of water. Clean and cool, gasps rippled through the crowd. "Why waste water on that creature?" someone shouted. But the human kept his calm expression and his hand stayed steady. The girl stared at the flask, fear and hope battling in her chest. Finally, with shaking hands, she reached out. Her fingers were thin and covered in dust, her nails broken. She touched the flask as if expecting it to be snatched away. When the human did not move, she lifted it and drank quickly, spilling some on her chin. The water ran down her throat, and for the first time in days, her body felt alive. Tears formed in her eyes, not just from the taste of water, but from the strange feeling of being given something freely. She whispered a word so soft it was nearly lost in the noise. "Why?" The human looked at her, his gaze steady. He did not give her an answer, for he did not have one. All he knew was that leaving her there felt wrong. Something deep inside told him that no one deserved to be treated this way. The crowd grew restless, their whispers sharp like knives. "Humans are fools," one said. "Maybe he wants to keep her as a pet." Another sneered. Laughter spread, cruel and mocking, but the human ignored them. The girl hugged the flask, close to her chest as if it was the only treasure she had. Her body shook from weakness but also from the weight of attention. For a moment she thought he might walk away like all the others after showing pity. But then the human extended his hand toward her, silent, steady, waiting. The air grew tense. Would she take his hand, or shrink back into the dust? Her eyes darted to the people around, their faces twisted with disgust, then back to the human, whose face showed no judgment, only quiet patience. Slowly she lifted her fragile hand and placed it into his. His grip was warm and firm, pulling her up gently from the ground. The crowd erupted in noise, some shouting, others laughing louder. But above all the chaos, the girl felt something strange, hope, faint but real. As she stood beside him, the dust fell from her clothes, though she was still dirty. She no longer looked invisible, no longer just a shadow on the street. The human looked down at her and saw more than dirt, more than weakness. He saw a life worth saving, though he did not yet know why. The marketplace noise faded in his ears, replaced by a simple thought. This girl is not worthless. And for the first time in her life, someone believed it. Her journey from the dust had begun, though neither of them knew how dangerous it would become. The market's noise followed them as the human led the girl away. His hand stayed firm around hers, steady and gentle. She walked with small, shaky steps, each one unsure if she was truly allowed to follow. Behind them, laughter and whispers still rose, voices mocking the sight of a human helping the worthless one. The human stopped near a quiet corner, a broken wall that gave some shelter from the eyes of the crowd. He crouched down and set his pack on the ground, opening it slowly. The girl hugged the flask close to her chest, her eyes wide and cautious. She had never been given anything before without pain following it. From the pack, the human pulled out a piece of dry bread. It was not much, but in her eyes, it was a feast. Her lips trembled, her fingers curling tighter around the flask. He broke the bread into 2 halves and offered one to her. The girl stared at it, her stomach tightening with hunger. But she did not move, her body frozen as if expecting a cruel trick. "Take it," the human said softly, his voice calm. The words were simple, but they carried weight. Slowly, she reached out, her hand shaking so hard she nearly dropped the bread. When she finally held it, her throat closed, tears threatening to fall. She lifted it to her mouth and bit, the taste plain yet overwhelming. Every chew felt like fire and relief together, her body begging for more. The human watched her eat, silent but thoughtful. He could feel the eyes of others still burning into his back, though they had stayed behind. To them, this act was foolish, a waste of food and time. But to him, it felt right. The girl paused. In her eating, her gaze lifting carefully to meet his, her voice came out small and broken. "Why are you doing this?" she asked. The human looked at her, then away, as if the answer was hard to find. "Because no one else would," he finally said. It was not a grand reason, not a plan or duty, just a choice that came from his heart. For some reason, that truth shook her more than anything. The bread gone. The girl sat quietly, her body still close to his, as if afraid he would disappear. The noise of the market seemed far away now, like another world. She clutched the flask and the crumbs in her hand, like treasures, but the fear had not left her eyes. The human noticed her glancing around, her shoulders stiffening. "Are they coming for you?" he asked gently. The girl lowered her head, silent for a long moment. Then she nodded just once, quick and sharp. His jaw tightened, his instincts warning him. Whoever they were, it meant danger. The girl's silence spoke of chains, of punishment, of being dragged back to the dust. He realized that offering her food and water was only the beginning. He sighed and looked at the flask in her hands. "If you come with me, they won't stop chasing," he said. Her eyes lifted, again fear and hope both shining there. "Do you want me to leave?" she asked, her voice cracking. He shook his head slowly. "No," he replied, "but it will not be easy." The girl hugged the flask to her chest tighter. Her body shook, but she whispered, "I don't want to go back." Those words hit him harder than any stone thrown by the crowd. It was not just hunger or thirst, it was desperation, the kind that came from years of pain. He could see it now. This girl had been treated as nothing, yet still clung to life. The human stood and offered his hand again, the second time that day. The girl hesitated, her heart pounding. Behind her, the dust of the street still called, reminding her of what she had been. But in front of her, his hand was steady, an invitation to something unknown. Slowly, carefully, she placed her hand in his. This time, she held on tighter, her fingers gripping as if afraid to let go. The human pulled her up and gave a small nod. "Then we go," he said simply. The market was still alive with sound, but as they stepped away, it felt quieter. The girl walked beside him, her thin steps unsteady, but growing stronger with each moment. For the first time, she was not left behind, not ignored, not kicked back into the dirt. For the first time, someone had chosen to see her, but unseen to them. Shadows moved in the alleys. Eyes watched their every step. The kindness of the human had not gone unnoticed, and somewhere behind a voice hissed, "She cannot be allowed to escape." The girl did not know yet, but her life had changed forever. The human's simple offer of water and bread had broken the chain of despair, and with that kindness, a dangerous path had just begun. The sky darkened as they left the market behind. The girl clung to the human's side, her thin steps stumbling over the broken stones of the old road. The flask was still pressed to her chest, as if it carried her whole world inside. The air smelled of dust and rain, a heavy storm waiting to break. The human glanced at the horizon, his eyes narrowing. He could feel the weight of danger pressing closer. Every shadow seemed alive, every whisper behind them sharp. The girl's gaze kept darting back as if expecting someone to leap from the crowd at any moment. They reached the edge of the ruined district where old buildings leaned like tired giants. Walls broken, roofs half gone, alleys filled with garbage and echoes. Few dared to walk here, for it was a place where only the desperate lived. But the human guided her inside, searching for a corner safe enough to hide. Thunder cracked above. Then, the storm finally breaking. Rain poured down in heavy sheets, drenching the streets and washing dust into rivers. The girl shivered, water dripping from her tangled hair, her clothes clinging to her fragile body. The human pulled her into the shell of an abandoned house. Its roof cracked, but walls still strong enough to keep most of the rain out. Inside, it was dark and cold, the smell of damp wood filling the air. The girl sat on the floor, wrapping her arms around her knees. Her body trembled, but it was not only the cold. It was the fear of footsteps chasing them, of chains ready to bind her again. The human removed his coat and placed it around her shoulders. It was far too big for her small frame, but its warmth brought comfort. She looked up at him, her lips parting then closing again as if words were trapped inside. Finally, she whispered, "Why do you care?" The human sat down across from her, his eyes steady in the dim light. "I don't know," he admitted quietly. "Maybe because no one else would." The girl lowered her gaze, her fingers gripping the fabric of the coat as if it were the only solid thing she had. The storm raged outside, thunder shaking the broken walls. For a while they sat in silence, the sound of rain filling the hollow room. The girl leaned against the wall, her body heavy with exhaustion. Her eyes closed for a moment, but her mind kept pulling her awake, afraid of what might come. When she finally spoke again, her voice was softer, almost breaking. "They hurt me because I am different," she said. Her hand moved to her arm, pushing aside the coat. And there, faintly glowing in the shadows, were strange patterns etched into her skin. The human leaned closer, his eyes narrowing. The glowing marks pulsed like light underwater, weak but alive. "What is that?" he asked, his voice low. The girl shook her head, her face pale. "It is the reason they call me cursed." She pulled the coat back over her arm quickly, hiding the glow. Her body shook, not from the cold but from the shame that weighed heavy on her. "No one wants me, no one ever will," she said in a broken whisper. "They said I should stay in the dirt because that is all I'm worth." The human's chest tightened, his jaw clenching. He did not know what the glowing meant. Not yet, but he knew one thing. This girl was not dirt. He leaned forward, his voice firm. "They are wrong." The girl froze, her breath catching in her throat. No one had ever spoken those words to her. For years, she had been told she was filth, a curse, a burden, and now this stranger said she was something else, something worth defending. Before she could answer, the sound of footsteps echoed outside. The human's eyes snapped to the broken window, his hand instinctively going to the knife at his belt. The girl's body stiffened, her breath quick and shallow. Shadows moved past the doorway, voices murmuring low, searching. "They're here," the girl whispered, terror flooding her eyes. The human rose quietly, placing himself between her and the doorway. He pressed a finger to his lips, signaling her to stay silent. The storm outside covered some of the noise, but not enough. The voices faded after a few minutes, but the danger remained. The girl clung to the coat, tears sliding down her cheeks. "Why don't you leave me?" she asked in a trembling voice. "They will come for me, and if you stay, they will hurt you too." The human looked back at her, his face set. "I don't leave people behind," he said, his voice steady. "You are not worthless, no matter what they call you." The words landed heavy in her heart, breaking something and healing something all at once. She covered her glowing arm again, but the light still faintly pulsed beneath the fabric. In that dark shelter, with the storm raging outside, she felt something she had never known before. It was not safety, not yet, but it was the beginning of it. For the first time, she was not alone in the storm. The storm passed slowly, leaving behind wet streets and the smell of earth. The broken shelter dripped with water through cracks in the roof. But it was quiet now. The girl sat wrapped in the human's coat, her eyes heavy but her mind awake. She could not forget the footsteps outside, the shadows that searched for her. The human checked his pack, making sure his supplies were still safe. He had little food, little water, but enough to move on. He knew staying in one place for too long would bring trouble. The pursuers would not give up, not while the girl was still free. The girl watched him silently, her fingers pressing against the coat where the glowing marks hid. She felt shame burn inside her chest, but also a strange warmth. No one had ever given her safety before, no one had ever shielded her. And yet here was this human, treating her like she was worth something. Finally, she whispered, "You don't understand what I am." Her voice was low, as if she was afraid the walls might hear. The human turned, his eyes calm but sharp. "Then tell me," he said. The girl hesitated, then slowly pushed the coat from her shoulder. In the dim light of the shelter, the glow returned. Strange. Beautiful patterns lit her skin, moving faintly like living fire under glass. They traced along her arms and collar, pulsing with every beat of her heart. The room seemed to hold its breath as the light filled it. The human stepped closer, his eyes narrowing but not in fear. "What is this?" he asked softly. The girl's lips trembled, her gaze falling to the ground. "It is a curse," she said. "They call it filth. They say it makes me dangerous, unwanted." The human shook his head slowly. "Curses do not shine like that," he replied. The girl blinked at him, her chest tightening. She had expected disgust, had expected him to recoil. Instead, he looked at her as if she was something rare, something precious hidden in the dust. Her hands shook as she pulled the coat tighter again, hiding the glow. "You don't know what they do to people like me," she whispered. The human leaned forward, his voice steady. "Then tell me," he said, "why do they hunt you?" The girl's eyes filled with tears, memories too heavy pressing on her. "I was born different, my family threw me away. The city marked me as worthless." She took a shaky breath. "The marks mean I belong to an ancient line, but they say, it is broken now. They use me for labor, they call me dirt, they spit on me, and if I resist, they beat me until I cannot move." Her voice cracked and she buried her face in her arms. The human's fists clenched, anger burning inside him. He had seen cruelty before, but something about this broke him deeper. How could they not see the value in her, when her very skin carried light? He moved closer and placed a hand gently on her shoulder. "You are not broken," he said firmly. His voice was like stone against the storm, steady and unshakable. The girl froze, tears spilling as she looked at him. In her entire life, no one had spoken those words to her. She had believed she was nothing, believed the lies they told her. But now, someone stood in front of her and denied all of it. Her chest ached, not from pain, but from hope she could barely handle. Suddenly, the sound of heavy boots echoed outside again. The girl gasped, clutching the coat tighter, her glow dimming. The human raised his hand, signaling silence, his body tense. Voices called, out, rough and commanding. "Search the ruins. She is here somewhere." The girl's breath shook, her eyes wide with fear. "They know I am with you now," she whispered. The human looked at her, then toward the broken doorway. "They will not take you," he said, his voice like iron. The pursuers drew closer, shadows stretching into the shelter. The human readied his knife, but his gaze flicked back to the girl. Her glow trembled beneath her skin. As if answering her fear, she looked at him, her voice barely a whisper. "You should leave me, you can still escape." He shook his head slowly. "I told you, I don't leave people behind," he said. The girl's chest tightened, her tears falling again. For the first time, she believed he meant it, truly meant it. The footsteps stopped just outside, voices muttering. The human braced himself, ready to fight if needed. But then, as lightning flashed through the broken roof, something happened. The girl's glow grew stronger, brighter, filling the room like a living flame. The human turned, his eyes widening. Her skin shone with radiant lines, pulsing with power she had never understood. The marks lit the shelter, chasing away the shadows, and outside the voices gasped in shock. "She is awakening!" The girl trembled, clutching the coat but unable to hide the light. Her body shook, her heart racing as if the glow was alive. The human stood beside her, his voice low and steady. "Do not fear it. This is not a curse. This is your strength." Her breath caught, her chest rising and falling. For the first time she dared to believe he might be right. She was not worthless, not broken. The hidden light was not her shame. It was her truth. The shelter glowed with her light, spilling into the storm-soaked night. Outside, the pursuers froze in shock, their torches and weapons trembling in their hands. The girl's eyes widened in terror, her hands pressing against her skin as if she could push the glow back inside. But the light refused to fade, alive with a rhythm that matched her heartbeat. The human stepped forward, placing himself between her and the doorway. His knife was small compared to the heavy clubs and spears outside, but his stance was unshaken. The storm's wind howled through the broken walls, carrying the voices of the pursuers. "She must be taken," one shouted. "Do not let the human protect her." The girl's chest tightened, her breath quick and shallow. Her entire life had been running, hiding, bowing her head in shame. Now the light betrayed her hiding place, and she feared it would doom the only person who had shown her kindness. "Please," she whispered, clutching the coat. "Don't fight for me. You will die." The human glanced back, his eyes steady and calm. "Then I die standing for what is right," he said. The words burned in her heart, tearing away years of lies that had been chained to her soul. For the first time, someone saw her as worth protecting. The pursuers surged forward, shadows spilling into the shelter. The human struck quickly, his knife flashing in the dim light. One attacker fell back with a cry, clutching his arm. But more poured in, the clash of steel and wood echoing with the thunder outside. The girl screamed, her glow flaring. The light burst outward in waves, blinding the pursuers for a moment. They stumbled back, shouting in fear. "Control it," one roared, "or it will consume us all." The human seized the chance, grabbing the girl's hand. "Run," he commanded, pulling her toward the broken wall at the back of the shelter. The girl stumbled but followed, her feet splashing through puddles as they escaped into the night. Rain lashed at their faces, the city around them a maze of dark alleys and broken streets. Behind them, shouts rose louder, the sound of boots slamming against the wet ground. Torches flared, chasing through the storm. The human pushed the girl forward, guiding her through narrow paths. His breath was heavy, but his steps never slowed. The girl's heart pounded, fear clawing at her chest. But with every step, the warmth of his hand pulling hers gave her strength. She stumbled less, her legs finding rhythm even as exhaustion bit deep. She had been hunted before, but never with someone running beside her. They turned a corner, splashing into a flooded street. The human scanned the area quickly, his eyes sharp even in the rain. "There," he muttered, spotting an old bridge ahead, broken and hanging over a deep river. It was dangerous, but it was the only path that could slow their pursuers. They dashed across, the wooden planks creaking under their weight. The girl gasped, looking down at the roaring water below. The bridge swayed in the storm, every step threatening to break it apart. Behind them, the glow of torches drew closer, voices calling out, "They are on the bridge." The human tightened his grip on her hand. "Don't look down. Just keep moving," he urged. The girl forced her eyes forward, focusing on his back. Her glow lit the broken boards beneath them, turning the rain into sparks of light. Halfway across, the pursuers reached the bridge, their heavy steps shaking it. The human cursed under his breath, pushing the girl faster. The wood groaned and cracked, one plank snapping into the river below. The girl stumbled, her scream lost in the storm, but the human pulled her up before she fell. They reached the other side, panting, soaked to the bone. The human turned and slashed at the ropes holding the bridge. The pursuers cried out in rage as the ropes frayed. With one final cut, the bridge collapsed, crashing into the river with a roar. The storm drowned their enemies' shouts, leaving only the thunder and rain. The girl collapsed to her knees, her body trembling, her glow fading dimly. She looked at him with wide eyes, her voice shaking. "You could have left me, you could have saved yourself." The human knelt beside her, resting a hand on her shoulder. "I told you," he said firmly, "I don't leave people behind." The girl's tears mixed with the rain, her chest aching with something she had never felt before. It was not fear, not despair. It was the fragile spark of trust. The night stretched long, the storm still raging. But as they moved forward into the unknown, one thing was clear. They were no longer just running. They were fighting to protect something worth more than life itself, her right to shine. The storm weakened by morning, but the danger had not passed. The girl and the human moved through the hills beyond the ruined city, their clothes wet, their bodies tired. Every step was heavy, but neither stopped. The girl's glow had dimmed, hidden once more beneath her skin, though faint sparks still pulsed when her heart raced. The human kept scanning the horizon, his hand never far from the knife at his belt. He knew the pursuers had not given up. Breaking the bridge had bought them time, but not safety. The girl stayed close, clutching the coat tighter around her, her eyes always flicking back as if expecting shadows to follow. By noon they reached a rocky plain where jagged stones rose like teeth from the earth. The wind whistled through the cracks, carrying the distant sound of voices. The human's jaw tightened. "They're still coming," he said. The girl's chest sank, her strength nearly gone. Her legs shook, and she whispered, "Maybe I should stop. If they catch me, you can live." The human stopped and turned to face her, his eyes steady. "I told you before," he said firmly. "I don't leave people behind." Her throat closed, tears stinging her eyes. No one had ever spoken those words for her. No one had ever chosen her over safety. The human placed a hand on her shoulder. "Listen to me," he said. "You are not dirty. You are not worthless. Your light is proof you are more than they will ever understand." Before she could answer, voices echoed across the rocks closer than before. Figures appeared at the edge of the plain, armored and armed, their torches burning even in daylight. The girl froze, fear gripping her heart. The human moved in front of her, knife in hand, his stance wide and ready. "Give her up," one of the pursuers shouted. "She belongs to us. Step aside, human." The human's voice cut through the wind, calm but hard. "She belongs to no one," he said. The pursuers laughed, their weapons lifting. The girl clutched the coat, her breath quick. She whispered, "You can't fight them all." The human looked back at her, his eyes clear. "Then I fall trying," he said simply. The first pursuer charged, swinging a heavy club. The human dodged, his knife flashing, striking fast. The attacker fell back with a cry, but more came, surrounding him in a half circle. The girl gasped, her glow sparking beneath her skin again. She felt powerless, trapped between fear and the weight of her gift. Her whole life she had been told the light was shame, a curse to hide. But now, watching the human fight for her, bleeding for her, she felt something shift. Her shame turned to fire, her fear turned to strength. The light burst from her skin, brighter than ever before. Lines of glowing fire raced across her arms and face, her body trembling with the force. The pursuers stumbled back, shielding their eyes. "What is she?" one shouted in terror. The human turned, his eyes wide, but his voice steady. "Don't be afraid of it," he called to her. "This is you, this is your strength." The girl's tears fell, but she stood taller. For the first time she did not cover the light, she let it shine. The ground beneath them trembled as her glow grew. A wave of energy swept outward, forcing the pursuers back, their weapons falling from numb hands. The storm's last clouds broke, sunlight spilling onto the plain. Her body glowed so brightly that even the shadows fled. The human moved to her side, placing a steady hand on her arm. Together they faced the enemy, light and courage standing as one. The pursuers faltered, their voices breaking in fear. "She is awakened. We cannot hold her," they cried, one by one. They fled back into the distance. The plane grew quiet, the only sound the wind and the girl's ragged breathing. Her glow faded slowly, leaving her pale and weak. She nearly collapsed, but the human caught her in his arms. "You see," he said gently. "It is not a curse." She leaned against him, her voice barely a whisper. I felt alive for the first time. I was not dirt. I was not worthless." The human nodded, his voice firm. "Because you were never worthless." Her tears fell, but this time they were not only from pain. Something inside her had broken free. She no longer believed the words of those who mocked her. She believed his instead. As the sun dipped lower, they rested among the rocks. The girl curled in his coat, her glow now only a faint spark. But in her heart, something had changed forever. Kindness had given her the courage to stand, and her light had finally answered. The plane was silent after the pursuers fled. The girl lay against the human's chest, her breathing heavy, her glow fading slowly into her skin. The storm had passed, the sky now clear, sunlight breaking through clouds and painting the rocks gold. The human held her steady, his hand firm on her shoulder, his eyes watching the horizon for danger. She trembled, but her eyes lifted toward him. "You stayed," she whispered, her voice weak but filled with wonder. The human looked down at her, his expression calm but kind. "I told you, I don't leave people behind," he said. The girl closed her eyes, tears slipping down her cheeks. For so long she had believed she was nothing but filth. For so long she had been told her light was shame, her body worthless, her soul broken. But this man had stayed, fought, and bled for her when the sun warmed her face. She pushed herself up, still unsteady. The coat hung heavy around her thin frame, but she no longer curled into it like a shield. Instead, she let it fall open, her arms bare, and the faint glow returned. This time she did not hide it. This time she let the world see. The human watched silently as the light spread across her skin. The glowing lines curved like stars along her arms and neck, soft but radiant. She looked down at her hands and gasped softly. "They used to call me dirty, but this, it is beautiful," she whispered. The human nodded slowly, his voice quiet but strong. "It was always beautiful. You just needed someone to remind you." The girl's lips trembled, a fragile smile touching her face for the first time. Her heart beat with a new rhythm, one of hope instead of fear. Together they walked down from the rocky plain, the land stretching wide before them. The ruins of the city were far behind, the smoke of the market hidden by the hills. For the first time in her life, the girl felt the world was open, not closed. She felt the path ahead was hers to choose, not theirs to chain. As they reached a small stream, the girl knelt and dipped her hands into the water. The dirt that had clung to her for days washed away. Swirling into the current, her reflection looked back at her. No longer a shadow covered in filth, but a girl with glowing marks, bright eyes, and strength hidden deep inside. The human stood nearby, watching as she cupped the water and washed her face. Her hair clung to her wet cheeks, but now it shone in the sunlight. Her skin sparkled with droplets, the glow beneath brightening with each breath. She turned to him, her smile small but real. "Do you think I can ever be more than what they called me?" she asked. The human stepped closer, kneeling so their eyes met. "You already are," he said firmly. "You were never what they called you. You are what you choose to become now." Her chest tightened, tears welling in her eyes again. Not tears of despair, but tears of release. For the first time she believed she had a future. For the first time she believed she could shine. As night came, they found a cave in the hills to rest. The stars spread wide above, endless and bright. The girl lay wrapped in the coat again, but now she held it not as a shield but as comfort. The human built a small fire, its crackle soft against the night air. She watched him, her eyes soft, her voice low. "You could have left me in the dirt, like everyone else," she said, "but you didn't, and because of you, I feel alive." The human looked into the fire, his face calm. "Kindness costs nothing." he replied. But it can change everything. The girl's heart swelled, her glow pulsing gently like starlight. She curled beside the fire, her eyes finally closing in peace. The human sat guard watching over her as the night deepened. By morning, when the sun rose again, the girl stepped outside the cave. The light of dawn met the glow of her skin. The two blending together, she lifted her face to the sky and spread her arms wide. For the first time, she was not hiding, she was not ashamed, she was not dirty or worthless anymore. She was a girl who shone with her own light, and beside her stood the human who had given her the strength to see it. Together they walked into the rising sun, leaving the past behind.